At the end of the day, what we are trying to accomplish, or I wouldn't use the word accomplish, but what we are trying to realize, what we are trying to experience through whatever we do, is that satisfaction of having lent a hand, having extended some help, having extended a smile, or some other form of expression of compassion for the sole purpose of deriving that joy and feeling that sense of fulfillment in our hearts. Having offered my humble and loving salutations at Sadhguru Sri Madhusudan Sai's lotus feet, I extend a warm greeting to all of you and a hearty Sairam to one and all. When I received a call regarding this particular talk, I did what I thought was best at that point of time, which was to try and postpone it as far as possible. And I requested that, we could look at this at some time in June or July. But as God would have it, it turned out that it had to be in May on this particular day. And I'm very grateful to Swami for graciously blessing me with this opportunity. Of course, after coming to know about it, I was in a dilemma as to what should I be speaking about. I really was dry on thoughts in that sense. And I reached out to our master and prayed to him, thanked him for the opportunity, and sought his guidance. And of course, with a slight sense of trepidation as well, wondering what he would come back with. And he came back with this guidance to focus on passion for compassion. Again, I went blank for a few hours, and finally I sort of prayed inside and collected my thoughts, and I realized that the topic he had chosen was actually meant for me also to deeply ponder over and perhaps share my thoughts today in this gathering. And so here I am to speak about passion for compassion. Compassion, as we all know, is something innate to all beings, in fact, not just human beings, but all beings. And we come across stories and examples of this every other day from the animal kingdom as well, and of course from our own fraternity, our own brotherhood and sisterhood. And it's something which is innate and which needs to be tapped into. In some cases, it is already on the surface, flowing. In some cases, it is overflowing, like we have fortunately witnessed with Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba, and now with Sri Sadhguru Madhusudan Sai. Of course, in others, it is perhaps lying dormant under the surface, or perhaps a little deeper inside also. And each one takes his or her own time to warm up, to melt, and let the compassion flow out. Just to get us all on the same page in terms of our understanding of compassion, what I understand is that compassion is nothing but love in action, where empathy moves us to recognize another's suffering, to identify with it, to actually feel the suffering that the other is going through, and then take action, take positive action to share that suffering, to alleviate that suffering, and to provide care and consolation and alleviation. So that's what compassion is all about. But we don't stop there. In this community, in this environment, in this ecosystem where we are all living and working together, it just doesn't stop merely at compassion. The occasional gesture or the occasional act or the occasional smile is not what we are limited to here. We are actually swimming in an ocean of compassion where we are all trying to do what we can and give our best, direct all our energies, our resources, our skills, our talent, apply all our various experiences and expertise for alleviating the suffering of many others, be it through alleviation of health disorders and physical suffering, be it through alleviation of poverty and empowerment of the downtrodden through education, or be it through addressing the problem of malnutrition amongst the millions in our country. So we are all swimming in that ocean of compassion, and I was just sort of going back over the last few years and also a little further back in time when I was a student and also when I was in corporate life, and now when I am also swimming together with all of you in that same ocean. And some of the thoughts that have come to, I wouldn't say come to my mind, but some of the thoughts that have perhaps emanated from within are that while we go about our activities, which are all directed towards compassion, which are all directed towards the alleviation of suffering of many others, while we invest all our energies, our time, our efforts, our resources, our talent and experience and expertise, what I thought was also important for us was to be rooted to the core idea of compassion and the core principle of passion for compassion. At the end of the day, what we are trying to accomplish, or I wouldn't use the word accomplish, but what we are trying to realize, what we are trying to experience through whatever we do, is that satisfaction of having lent a hand, having extended some help, having extended a smile, or some other form of expression of compassion for the sole purpose of deriving that joy and feeling that sense of fulfillment in our hearts. In the humdrum and the buzz that we have in our daily lives in terms of all the various projects that are being executed, the multiple tasks that have to be carried out, the kind of goals that we have to reach through our efforts, let not this passion for compassion morph into some other passion for perhaps just plain accomplishment, or some other passion for just plain recognition, or just another task or some work that we are doing every day. Let us be very conscious all through our working day, perhaps, if not at least at the end of the day and every day, as far as possible, as much as possible, to connect back to this core idea of passion for compassion, which is nothing but an all-encompassing feeling, an all-encompassing thought process, an all-encompassing state of mind to embrace and to join with the others who are perhaps the have-nots. When I say have-nots, I don't mean just in terms of physical or material items and matters, but anybody, I could be a have-not tomorrow on some particular aspect in my life. You could be a have-not for something else. And we are there for each other to see how we can change that have-not to a have, or how we can share that have-not and thereby reduce the burden, reduce the suffering. If I were to allude to my corporate life, like it was mentioned, I was engaged in the manufacturing and exports of fashion apparel and textiles. And fashion by itself, the word by itself, connotes glamour, connotes a lot of razzmatazz and jazz, etc. But at the back end, at the manufacturing end, there is nothing glamorous about it. There is nothing extravagant about it. There's no razzmatazz as such. And it's very hard work, trust me. It's a very difficult industry. I'm not crying on your shoulders here, nor am I looking for sympathy or engaging in self-pity, but I'm just giving you a background that it was not easy for me in my corporate life. And there were times when I wondered why Bhagwan guided me into this particular line of business and industry, because he was gracious enough to have guided me towards it. So there were times when I threw up my hands in despair. There were times when I was on the brink. And when I say I was on the brink in terms of the enormous risks that were involved, which I was responsible for and answerable for as the de facto CEO and head of the business. And the buck stopped at my table. And it involved hours and hours of hard work, including on weekends, not just in front of a laptop or a computer at a desk in an air-conditioned room, but actually on the factory floor, on the shop floor, sometimes 10 hours a day on my 2 feet. So that's the background. And there were times when we were not doing well. And this industry can be very dangerous. It can wipe out in one single or perhaps in just 2 orders in a year. It can wipe out the profits of the last 2-3 years. It's as challenging as that. And I would wonder, what am I doing? What am I really going after here? I was ready to, hang my boots and say enough is enough. In fact, when I first came here in 2014 and met Bhagwan and also Sri Madhusudan Sai, there was this thought already in my mind about calling it a day. And in his divine omniscience, he said, don't even think of resigning. That's a job I have given you, and you're not going to do anything about it until I tell you. So there it was. But what I'm coming to is that one day, I was standing at the ground floor of our factory, and it was the closing hour when the workers would troop out of the factory, and the majority of them were ladies, about 80% of them, or even 85%. And I was just standing there and watching this sight of these ladies, coming down the stairs in a rush, going and taking possession of their handbags, some of them going to the creche and collecting their children, and all kinds of ladies in all kinds of attire, and with a lot of tension on their faces, with a lot of exhaustion, not of the work, but the exhaustion that one experiences in life in general. And that day it struck me that it was not just a casual decision that Bhagwan made about putting me in this industry and putting me through all that hard work. On that day, I suddenly derived this satisfaction, thinking that along with my team members, I was one of many instruments who was at least able to work hard to ensure that these ladies and these gents, all these workers on the factory floor in the various departments, could take back their 5,000 or 6,000 or 7 or 8,000 rupees back home and somehow make ends meet for their children, cope with all the challenges and the rubbish that they have to often encounter at home. And I derived this sense of satisfaction. And somewhere, this feeling of compassion sort of grew in me. And thereafter, I always reminded myself of this incident and said, no matter what the frustration, no matter what the challenges, no matter what the difficulties, let me not forget that there are 3,000 lives under this particular organization that I was heading and running with a fantastic team. And there are 3,000 lives out there who are having their daily bread. And then so are we alongside, perhaps at much higher scales. So in that sense, I counted myself lucky. Alluding back to my student days, this is typically Kodaikanal season, and it was Kodaikanal season then too, and this is an incident that I'm recounting from there. There is this beautiful poem by John Milton, where the last few lines read thus: God doth not need either man's work or his own gifts. Who best bear his mild yoke? They serve him best. His state is kingly. Thousands at his bidding speed and post over land and ocean without rest. They also serve who stand and wait. So I'm sure some of these lines ring a bell here. Thousands at his bidding speed and post over land and ocean without rest. That's this ocean that we are all swimming in. And then those last lines where he says, they also serve who stand and wait. So it so happened during this Kodaikanal trip in 1988 summer, when Bhagwan was having one of his morning sessions inside the Sai Shruti bungalow. And there came up this line from this poem, and Bhagwan immediately commanded two of the stalwarts present there from the Department of English and Literature to get into a nice animated debate. So one of the stalwarts, familiar to all the Anantapur sisters seated here, was Madam Jayamma herself. And the other stalwart was from the men's side, an alumnus and also a lecturer doing his PhD in the Department of Literature in Prashanti Nilayam. And they had a nice, lively debate with both of them standing on either side of Bhagwan. And Bhagwan, with his charming smile and his charming gestures, looking at him and listening to him very, very intently, and then turning to Jayamma Madam and listening to her, and then projecting his own reactions on his face of satisfaction, of joy, of the enjoyment that he was getting from the debate. And then finally he said, he gave the concluding remarks. The debate was for it and against it. Because these are lines, I would like to caution everyone, that have been oft misquoted because they have never been quoted in context. John Milton makes that statement in the context and background of his developing blindness, where he is dejected about it, he is downcast, and he finally, through his internal churning, reaches this realization that they also serve who stand and wait. So this is not an excuse for laziness. Let us not demonstrate our compassion by saying, hey, you first, I'll take care of my compassion later on. No, that's not what it means. But Bhagwan gave his concluding remarks where he stated that even those who are equipped or resourced in different ways also can serve, also can demonstrate compassion, also can engage in service of the Lord merely by standing and waiting. So the sum and substance of this was that we are all differently capacitated, we are all different, we are diverse, we are from diverse fields, we are from diverse backgrounds, having our own respective talent or skill or capabilities, etc. And we should be content and happy to serve him in the best way that we can, and not just serve him, but to express our innate compassion towards all our fellow beings with that desired passion, given the limitations and the framework of our abilities and our possibilities. So I would like to conclude by saying that this passion for compassion is something that has to be a constant, something that we have to be deeply rooted in and connected to all the time, not losing our focus, not losing our way along the way, and also making space where the situation so demands and demonstrating our compassion in different ways to different people at different times. Thank you very much for patiently listening to me. I'm grateful to you all and grateful to Sadhguru Sri Madhusudan Sai for this opportunity.